Hi, welcome to my first video. I will be talking about my love of music, my playing of music, but especially my obsession with the Beatles. And I'll be doing reviews and things like that. All opinions are mine and nobody else's. So what I want to talk about today is the new box set that came out. The Beatles US Albums. Nice box, isn't it? Now, there's been a lot of controversy about this whole thing. And I'm sure if you've looked at other Beatle YouTube videos out there, if you've watched John Montana or Beatles 72, read the blogs, there have been controversy out there from the Beatle fans when it was announced that these would include the 2009 digital remasters and not the funky American mixes that came out. If you don't know too much about it, the American mixes had a lot of anomalies in there. First off, they were second and third generation tapes. And they also had weird things about them, like She's a Woman and I Feel Fine had a lot of echo, especially in the duophonic mix. What duophonic is, it's a mono mix. Stereo wasn't available when it was sent over to America, so Capitol would do these duophonic mixes. Take all the treble and put it in one channel, take all the bass and put it in another channel at a slight delay, and you'd have a fake stereo image. And in the case of She's a Woman and I Feel Fine, they were drenched in lots of echo, so it sounded like you were listening to it in a... I've always thought a large dungeon is when I first heard as a little kid. But considering what the Capitol albums were to begin with, and even a lot of beatards considered them rip-offs to begin with, wouldn't we want better editions of what is essentially a rip-off? Now, I didn't know it at the time. This was my American edition of Rubber Soul, of Revolver, excuse me. And this is an 80s reprint that I got for Christmas in 84, mind you. And if you remember, anybody who lived through the 80s can tell you that Capitol had a purple label on it. And I always thought I'm Only Sleeping, Dr. Robert, And Your Bird Can Sing were all a part of Yesterday and Today. And boy, was I wrong. You should have already the 2009 stereo remasters. You should also have the mono box set, which I got both on the same day, and it was an exciting day. The Beatles US Albums box set, I would say you should get if you are a Beatle maniac. If you're just starting out with your love of Beatles, I would recommend the original UK editions. That's the way the Beatles wanted them. That's the way they cared about them. They paid attention to the sequencing. But American fans never really got that experience until Sgt. Pepper. They insisted with Sgt. Pepper that the US and British configurations the same. So from that point on in America, we got the original albums. But I actually didn't grow up hearing Beatles for Sale. I didn't grow up hearing the original Hard Day's Night album, with side 1 being the film track, side 2 being the other tracks that they recorded at the same time. I grew up with the United Artists soundtrack. I grew up with Something New from my dad's collection. I did not even care that 5 songs that appeared on here as well. And believe me, I actually thought the Beatles went in the recording studio and recorded an album called Something New. I didn't know anything about it. And the heartbreak that I felt, some American fans have longed for the day when they would have these again. Myself, I grew up with this, but I read 2 books growing up. One was called The Beatles, an Illustrated Record, which was put together by 2 critics from, I think, New Musical Express. I'm not too sure. I'll have to take a look into that. And the other one was Nicholas Schaffner's The Beatles Forever. And Beatles Forever was a book that I read constantly because it was not meant to be an official biography. It was meant to be from the perspective of a fan. That's what I liked about it. At one point, the book stopped and he started talking about what happened with the American editions. And I was heartbroken. I read the book in 5th grade and I was heartbroken. I felt like I was cheated. And once the CDs were announced and they were coming out in the original British configurations, I felt even more cheated. And that's when I wanted to hear them the way the Beatles heard them. But honestly, Capitol knew they had a cash cow. Capitol knew they honestly had a big cash cow. So, in 1964, you had... I mean, if I was an American back in 1964, I'd be amazed that the Beatles were so prolific that they managed to issue 5 albums that year, including The Beatles Story, which by that time, somebody should have been questioning Capitol's tactics with this thing. Compare Bob Freeman's photo of the Beatles on Beatles for Sale and compare this sort of haphazard photo that they took of the Beatles from like a teen magazine for this Beatles 6 album, which is sort of volume 2 of the American edition of Beatles for Sale. And now, here's what you've all been waiting for. A new Beatles album with all new Beatles songs. Most of them, like No Reply, I'm a Loser, and I Feel Fine, composed by that hit songwriting team of John Lennon and Paul McCartney. These are the new favorites by the 4 boys who have proven themselves to be the biggest favorites of all. Here's Beatles 65! But I also reminisce about these things, because this is how I first heard them. Once I found out about the British configurations, I didn't necessarily miss them, but, you know, that's how I first heard them. And I spent hours with these albums that my father had, and hours obsessing over them and playing them, and ruining his covers, too. I remember the Help cover that I had was massively Scotch taped. I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but it was massively Scotch taped because I would carry it everywhere. And just to kind of show you what's in these things, if you are a geek like me, if you are a beatard, once I got this box set, I was nerding out, just like I did when I got the 2009 remasters and the mono remasters. I mean, this is the soundtrack to Help. Now, according to a friend of mine who grew up at that time, he said this was the first time most Americans heard a sitar because of Ken Thorne's instrumental music from the film. As just like with the mono remasters, there's plastic wrap on here. But this is what I remember as a kid. You got your gatefold sleeve, miniature gatefold sleeve of the Help album. It was supposed to be a deluxe package at the time when it came out. And it has its own inner sleeve. And just like the mono editions, the inner sleeve has its own inner sleeve. But this is what I was totally obsessed with. This. I was looking at this on my father's records all the time. These Capitol inserts that would advertise more great albums from Capitol. And including, now enjoy the greatest stereo you've ever heard on all new Capitol stereo discs. New presence in the vocal passages. New impact in the percussion. New transparency in the strings and the reeds. One of the things I always had wondered about these things, these sort of catalog advertisements, they had nothing to do with the artist, you know? Why is this Judy Garland live at Carnegie Hall on this thing? True, it's a Capitol record, but has nothing to do with the Beatles. I'm not going to buy Judy Garland. I don't care about Judy Garland. She was great in The Wizard of Oz, but I am never going to own Judy Garland live at Carnegie Hall. Never in my entire life. Never will I own this record. Tennessee Ernie Ford? Who the heck is Tennessee Ernie Ford? 16 tons and what do you get? Another year older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I sold my soul to the company store. It's amazing how our musical horizons expand as we get older. So, but I was, these were albums that I would see over the time, and I would just obsess over just these tiny details. Of course, it's got the little rainbow label on it, which is amazing. So, are they worth it to get? Yes, if you are a beatard and you have the sickness, the disease, and now that we do have the US editions, I'm wondering if the butcher cover will go down in value now, since we now have it officially forever. One could only hope.